Hello, welcome to TSC Talks, the podcast inspired by the condition known as tuberous sclerosis complex, which causes benign tumors to grow in all the major organs of the body. This podcast is for those directly affected, parents, caregivers, anyone who's ever struggled to make sense of unimaginable circumstances and find a way. My name is Jill Woodworth, and I am your host. Buckle up. We're going for a ride outside the box, off the grid, down many a rabbit hole, and back as we wrangle a way to case manage and stay sane. Talk about it, compare notes, find the experts, pick their brains. No magic bullet, but we are not alone. Hello. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to try to make this quick because this is a meaty podcast and it came in at just under an hour, and I don't want to make it go too much over an hour because I want everybody to hear this. I have on the podcast Blaze Therapeutics. Blaze Therapeutics, well, they're the company Blaze Therapeutics, with the people on the podcast, CEO Nadia Bodkin, who is a seasoned rare disease patient advocate, and Vincent Crowley, who is the senior vice president, and he himself is a veteran of the U.S. military who ended up being medically retired due to an injury. During his years of service in the military, Vincent discovered a heightened awareness for his core values and beliefs, incorporating these core values into his daily life and passion to help other service members navigate life post-military service and transition back into the civilian sector. And as I said, Nadia is a seasoned rare disease advocate. She's been involved in leadership positions at several rare disease-focused organizations. She's still active in the coordination and facilitation of the rare advocacy movement's activities. And both Vincent and Nadia are founding members of New Love Ventures, which they will speak about. They have a lot of services offered under the Blaze Therapeutics umbrella. Blaze exists to offer plant-based solutions to the rare disease, U.S. veteran, and professional medical communities that target the improvement of overall health, wellness, and quality of life. I'm going to turn it over to them and say thanks for tuning in, and take it away, Vincent and Nadia. I have Vincent Crowley here and Nadia Bodkin. Is that correct?
Yeah, Nadia Bodkin.
Bodkin, I'm sorry. And you are both, I believe, Nadia, you are the president of Blaze Therapeutics, and Vincent, you are VP, or you're both?
Yeah, so I do have the status of president at EDSers United for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but I am also a member of the rare advocacy movement. In regards to Blaze, I'm the CEO.
Okay, yeah, unbelievable. I was reading through your LinkedIn, and, I want to hear more. So I guess if you want to just start off, both of you, tell me a little bit about yourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, whoever wants to start, yeah.
So my name is Vincent Crowley. I'm a medically retired veteran of the United States Army. My past experience in the Army was served as a dental hygienist. I also studied psychology at the University of Maryland. I'm co-founder of New Love Ventures and also the senior vice president at Blaze Therapeutics.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I'm also a co-founder at New Love Ventures as well, and the CEO for Blaze Therapeutics. And just by way of medical education, I have my doctorates in pharmacy and my master's in genetics from Rutgers University. And my primary focus for the past decade has always been in rare disease patient advocacy through a variety of projects and organizations in the drug development industry. And the most recent project I've had the honor of working on is through the Rare Advocacy Movement, which is a group of rare disease patient advocacy leaders dedicated to understanding and documenting the evolving patient advocacy landscape and uniting different stakeholders through collaborative projects.
Wow, that's awesome. As a parent of 3 kids with a rare condition, I probably could go wax poetic about the need for that. So that's awesome. And the veterans.
If you have a chance, check it out at rareadvocacymovement.com.
I will.
You're really active. Yeah.
I will. Absolutely. Yeah. I haven't really jumped into
as much advocacy as I wish I would have, just because when my kids were little, I was absorbed with, just the day-to-day stuff. So
Caregiving.
yeah, I just kind of wishing it's always one of those things, like I talk to people, I'm like, oh, wow, you've done this and that. And I'm like, it's incredible what's been, that movement with patients kind of speaking up and taking more charge of their own care is really great. Yeah, I've had some incidents recently where, my kids, they're falling through the cracks in the systems. And it's like this sick feeling as a parent, like, you kind of know why it's happening, but it's almost like I didn't realize how real it was until it happened to me. So all that.
Well, there's a whole community of parents and caregivers that like unite over that so that they can support each other. Yeah.
That's good to know.
You don't have to do it on your own.
I only entered the rare disease community in July of 2018 when I met Nadia, and I've been blown away by the support that I've seen throughout the community and learning how to become, more on the caregiver side myself.
Yeah, we're a tight-knit group, so the experience alone is what connects all of us.
Yeah, definitely. So Vincent, and you bring your veterans, that piece to this program that you guys have developed.
Yeah, Vincent and I, we both connected over our passion for advocacy work, and his focus has always been on advocating for veterans and helping them transition into civilian.
Yeah.
And after meeting and gaining a better understanding of each other's advocacy work, we learned that both the veteran and rare disease communities are both dealing with very similar socioeconomic and healthcare issues.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell her how we met?
Yeah, definitely. So it all started in Dallas, Texas. All right. So that FYI. And I was driving for Lyft. Nadia just so happened to come in town for a business meeting. And the crazy part about this story is that I turned my app off so I wouldn't get any more rides. And somehow she still ended up in my queue. And I picked her up at the airport. We shared some energy in the ride over, talked about everything we had in common. And then after that, we pretty much stayed connected. Nadia invited me over to New York after she told me about the CBD company that she was working with and this distribution company. And I went over to New York and got an interview.
Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Keep going.
And the distribution company had hired me to identify CBD products that had a high therapeutic potential. So I did a lot of small scale patient reported trials and reviewed different formulations to identify their bioavailability and feasibility and all that. And once the CBD products passed the clinical testing, I had also developed a quality assurance program for the company that required the random testing of CBD products prior to getting distributed to shops. So when I invited Vincent to New York, I didn't expect him to talk his way into an executive position with the company, but he did. And instead of being hired for the job that I wanted him to initially get, he ended up the company put him in charge of a whole new department.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And anyway, so to shorten the unfortunately dramatic story, right? The individual that was in charge of the quality assurance program that Nadia was implementing into the business wasn't doing his job, and they failed to tell Nadia, and also had the permission of the CEO to be doing this. So
wow.
As an executive in the company, I had access to the books, and the investigative person that I am, I just wanted to know who I was working for, what kind of money we were making. I'm the business side, the senior vice president side. And with that, I found that they weren't even doing the quality assurance program whatsoever that Nadia had implemented.
Oh boy.
I was furious, and I went straight to Nadia.
Yeah, he went straight, and as soon as I found out, that was like such a huge deal that they had stopped the quality assurance program. It took 2 years to implement.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
That's oof.
And then after we looked into it even further, we found out that the company was distributing CBD labeled products. I can't even call it CBD products. They were just labeled CBD that had been rejected for formulation issues, label issues, missing COA issues. And some COAs even showed that the products either had no CBD in them or a quarter of the CBD concentration, and or had really high arsenic levels and mercury levels.
Oh my goodness.
And they still distributed it to shops.
So the short story of that is we got the inside scoop with all of the craziness going on inside the Wild West, and so they call it, right?
Yep.
So we called a meeting with all the executives and sat them down, confronted them with this, and they pretty much shrugged their shoulders. And after that, Nadia and I resigned immediately from that company.
Yeah.
We
pretty much got out. It was a total ethical situation, and they weren't going to change. They told us they were not interested in executing the quality assurance program, and which is huge because it was on the front page of the website, and that's pretty much what
your
had
name.
people. Yeah.
Especially we were the face. Right?
Wow.
I had introduced the company to the rare disease community, and they hired Vincent to introduce me to the veteran community and get the product into VA hospitals. And so,
oh my goodness,
I'm so grateful he did his due diligence and found this out. But then when we resigned, we were like, all right, well, maybe we can find another company that is interested in this quality assurance program.
Yeah, and so like you said, after resigning, we went to several different CBD shops and manufacturers. We could not identify one company that was able to implement this quality assurance program. They turned us down and said, we're not interested in that. And
they said if it's not required by law, then we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Wow. So they just didn't want the extra work because it probably cost more money and time.
Absolutely.
Even though it was ensuring safety and consistency and all those other very important aspects of
things that
CBD.
things that would let them go to the end of this Wild West.
The things that make companies are long lasting. So a lot of them they were more focused on the gold rush aspect of make as much money as you can while you still can, and they're not thinking about the long haul and surviving the process. So
and they're still out there.
Yeah.
So anyways, so we were faced with this ethical dilemma, right? We wanted to had to find if we wanted to support the industry or if we wanted to just completely get out. And being that we both use CBD regularly, we really
we didn't have where do we get our products,
right.
So, and then we ultimately discovered that this is actually an issue in the entire holistic product industry. If you look at the laws, there's no real regulations. It's not just cannabis. And so
that's kind of what led us to the founding of Blaze Therapeutics.
That is pretty cool. So you guys just kind of busted away and started your own concept, which kind of really is a big undertaking, scary. And that, how did you both get into using CBD? And can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I didn't learn about cannabis medicine or even the endocannabinoid system in pharmacy school.
Of course not.
In fact, I remember taking a course that taught us that marijuana was the gateway drug to more illicit drug use, but we never were presented with any clinical evidence of that phenomenon. So I started researching cannabis medicine and the endocannabinoid system for personal health reasons about 8 years ago in 2012.
And so I began myself in 2017 because it was just excruciating pain. I was on my way out of the service through a med board. And the day I left service, I took a journey to Colorado to learn more about cannabis medicine because I was determined not to take opioids. After witnessing my brothers and sisters that were in and out of service, struggling with the addiction, overdosing, and even taking their own lives, I felt like there's no possible way that I can trade this for that. So my journey began with cannabis, I guess, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So you were determined not to use. And
because of that, we ended up connecting. And so we decided, even though it was a short-lived experience at the company, being colleagues, we decided to go into business together and do it right. And so we developed what we termed the responsible distribution model.
Okay. The responsible distribution. Can you tell me about exactly what that is? You founded Blaze Therapeutics, and I think maybe you can tell me about the philosophy and the vision and the goals, and work in the piece about the response that'll probably come into play. I think I'm getting ahead of myself, but yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
The responsible distribution model is a model designed specifically for the healthcare industry. Precautions taken to protect customer safety and ultimately protect businesses from potential liability issues, right? And because the cannabis industry is such a young and vulnerable, and unfortunately, most of the products on the market are contaminated with toxins and labeled inaccurately.
Yep.
Yeah, and so products that are responsibly distributed come with a certificate of analysis that are unbiased and third-party tested.
Okay. So are these products that you sell through Blaze Therapeutics?
So we distribute directly to, our primary business model is distributing directly to healthcare professionals, so doctors, and because people who consume CBD should be talking to their doctors.
Absolutely, and that's one of my pet peeves, seen actively in these rare disease, especially TSC, people on but a whole bunch of meds, and then they throw CBD in there, and they have no idea why everything goes weird.
CBD is metabolized by the cytochrome P450 enzymes while functioning as a competitive inhibitor, which means that CBD can cause pharmaceutical medications to metabolize slowly, causing the pharmaceutical drug to stay in the bloodstream for longer periods. And in contrast, there are pharmaceutical drugs that actually induce cytochrome P450 enzymes and consequently reduce CBD bioavailability. So you have to talk with your doctor before implementing CBD into your daily regimen. But what we do is we do have an online shop. From everything we learned at our previous employer, we cannot vouch for one brand. Each brand has always had issues when it came to different lots. And so what we did is we scoured the market. We have tested several popular brands that were heavily marketed to veterans and rare disease individuals, and also the medically focused brands, the ones that are saying, oh, doctor formulated, pharmacist formulated. And so we brought all of those products into our model. We looked at the formulations to first see if they even had a high therapeutic potential. The ones that had a lot of sugar, artificial sweeteners in it, we just completely disregard, and artificial colors and flavors. A lot of people have negative reactions to those things. So they're unnecessary additions that we feel to the formulation. So they don't even get past the first step. However, if the formulation has a high therapeutic promise and their certificate of analysis shows that it's free of pesticides and residual solvents, and it passes their lab work, then we purchase in bulk. We bring in a whole lot, an actual lot, a whole batch or lot number into our facility. And then once we receive the product, then we send out one product from each batch and lot for additional testing. We call that unbiased third-party testing, because we're the unbiased party. We have no financial interest in any of these brands, and we send them out for additional laboratory testing. And when those lab tests come back, if there's any issues, then we talk with the manufacturers about what they are, and we try to identify what went wrong. If they pass and they're consistent, then it enters the distribution market, goes ahead and is distributed to the different healthcare professionals that have chosen to distribute directly to their patients. And the remainder of those lots, because we can't guarantee that the next lot from that company is going to pass, because we found that regardless of the first lot passing, the second one can be contaminated. And so because of that phenomenon that happens, when the amount of products dwindle down to like 10 or 15 products left, then we put those up onto the website. They're no longer being able to buy in bulk.
I see.
So the people that buy from us, the wholesalers, they get two certificates of analysis. They get the ones from the manufacturer and the ones from us, so that they can see that they can see the consistency in the testing and the product.
Wow, that's really brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah,
it's so important.
It should have been.
Yeah, I think because if you're dealing with people that have a rare disease or the veteran community and are already on, bunches of meds, and then adding in CBD from who knows where, it's just terrifying. And so that's really great.
Yeah. So, and when you mentioned about the veteran community, when it comes to the veteran community, they're really a mixed bag of people in the veteran community, because some of them are
of how they view cannabis medicine.
I was going to ask that.
veterans live for a long time, right? So you still got veterans stuck in the 1930s that are concerned and worried about the reefer madness propaganda instead of their health. Or you have veterans like myself that have turned to cannabis medicine for relief from pain and suffering without taking these painkillers. And then, of course, there's another league of veterans, that the veterans using their status to sell CBD with knowledge, knowing that it's not responsibly, and it will never qualify for responsible distribution.
Yeah,
Of course.
we've actually saw the same thing in the rare disease community with companies pushing their products and marketing their products directly to members of rare diseases. Specifically those who are suffering from seizures with products that have been tested. We've actually tested them for responsible distribution and they failed. And not one CBD product has been recalled. And that's a huge issue.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I guess, I knew a little bit about this, but just hearing you guys talk about it in detail makes me kind of start to understand just like how big this problem is and how important it is. And I want to hear about, the piece educating the doctors, because I think that's where there's the catch-22 is. I know personally, my own doctor, I started using cannabinoid medicine probably about 5 or 6 years ago, seriously, as a way, as not for fun or anything, but to reduce my own pharma. And my doctor, they don't know. And they're hearing all kinds of things from different sources, but to be able to go to a place that's tested it and, again, and is verifying that it's quality is excellent. So
to be that unbiased, and just to drop in before we talk more about the doctor's education about it, just to drop in the unbiased third-party testing. The unbiased third-party tester does not have any financial obligations or responsibilities in the company that they're testing for.
Yeah, you know how what happened with the vape products, the Juul products? That happened because the manufacturers are the ones doing their own testing. And then when a product contaminated with something, or it's not, or the active ingredient or the concentrations are not right, they have to decide if they're going to continue to sell or if they're going to pull their products. And most of them are going to continue to sell, because if they pull their products, that's all that money that went into making that product and labeling it and manufacturing it, they have to throw that away. So that's why we felt it's so important to have a responsible distributor. As soon as someone else knows about that failed product, now they can't sell it. Now someone else knows. When we were working with a company that they passed for 2 years, and they got really, really big, and you can even find them at Whole Foods right now. And then their most recent product, they changed their formulation, I guess, to lower cost. They didn't tell anyone, and our responsible distributor caught it. And so when we approached them about it, because we will not distribute any product until it passes. Like, we don't distribute and then be like, oh, oops, the test came back that, and let's recall now. First. Yeah, we don't believe in recalls. First got to be tested clean, and then it gets distributed. Okay. And they were sitting on our shelves for the longest because that company, they wanted the products back. They decided to bring the products back. They just rebranded them. They repackaged them. And
oh my goodness!
Unfortunately, we can't do anything about
it. If it doesn't pass, and you tell the manufacturer, they have the option to take it back and do whatever with it, because that's as much as you can do, really.
That's as much as we can do. We don't have power to discard them, because we had to make responsible distribution sustainable. And so we wanted the data first, so that we could then go to the FDA and go to the state legislators and show them, hey, this is what's happening. Like, we need enforceable laws.
So you're building proof at the same time as you're
researching the market.
And so and now that we've been able to document what's happening in marketplaces, it's not just cannabis, it's garlic, it's honey, it's several industries that this is the spice industry. We've been exploring that as well. We're not just committed to cannabis, but, we're committed to nutrition and health, overall
That's right.
health.
You have that nutraceuticals on your website. That's what you're referring to, correct?
Yeah, the overall holistic product industry. It includes, the spices that we use to season our foods. And a lot of our spices have silicone in it.
And a lot of our chronic pain is caused by all the different products that have so many different...
The toxins that are building up. It's increasing our inflammatory systems. Our bodies are trying to fight all these toxins.
Incredible what we found.
And so
I can only imagine. I'm just thinking about, it's just horrifying. I think
it is.
Just even the medications that are tested and given to our loved, that the sheer number that they're consuming at the same time with no one really understanding the whole impact is scary enough. But to add into the mix all these products with who knows what in it. Wow. Yeah. So that's like, this is really kind of groundbreaking for a company to be doing something like this. I haven't heard about any other companies, CBD companies.
Unfortunately, we're the only ones. We're trying to encourage others to join us. We're not saying we're the only ones that we did develop the responsible distribution model, but we want to teach other distributors how to do it. If they're interested, we're willing to teach them. We want as many people doing this. Even if other industries are like, okay, we want to implement this into our industry as well, the supplement industry, we want to teach them how to do it.
And that's cool.
Yeah, and with that at Blaze Therapeutics, we actually have educational programs, 3 educational programs. One that educates healthcare professionals, shop technicians or bud tenders, members of the general public. And we encourage all business owners, if you are carrying CBD, to utilize the courses to help protect public health. And moreover, their business from liability.
Yeah, The thing is, we felt it wasn't enough. And when it comes to cannabis, it wasn't enough to just have the responsible distribution model. We needed to implement an educational component. And so that is why we developed the cannabis medicine for healthcare professionals certification program. And we also have one for the shop technicians, as Vincent mentioned. And we have one for also people that don't have a background in science, so that they can, coming from the rare disease community, we self-educate ourselves all the time. We always ask questions. We're skeptical, So coming from that angle, we did our due diligence to make sure that these programs teach in a digestible way. The non-science background individuals, they can understand the content. There's pictures, and the ones that for healthcare professionals, it's designed specifically for but also designed for their busy schedules. And it's straight to the point. And so that's something that we found even doctors needed. They need to understand dosing and what a phytocannabinoid is and all the different types and what we currently know from science. We don't preach anecdotal data. Anecdotal data is definitely useful, but at the end of the day, all that does is then encourage us to explore it more. And when we then develop those clinical research studies and the data that comes back, then we can finally print it and apply it to different treatment regimens. We don't believe in applying anecdotal data to treatment regimens. If it hasn't been tested in an actual clinical setting, or there's some sort of like actual animal study data that can guide us a little bit more, then we don't take personal stories as guidance when it comes to that type of thing.
Got it. So you're really trying to stick to the facts and
what we currently know. Yeah. Yes. And we do recognize, there are over 113 phytocannabinoids just in the cannabis plant alone.
Right.
So
it's amazing.
Just recently, they just discovered that CBG has antibiotic properties. I
read that this morning.
Yeah, with MRSA. Yeah. It's
amazing. Like, how cool is that? It's like a whole pharmacy, within a plant that we really need to have better access to, and better, like you're doing, putting out methods that we're able to actually utilize. And not, I think one of my main issues with people telling me, our pharmacy is going to develop all these formulations with cannabis. And I'm like, well, when is that? Because I think that if there's an option such as using cannabis, it's going to be a better option long-term and will possibly offer a reduction in other medications that an individual might be on. As a parent and having witnessed all kinds of, medication problems over the years, I want to know. I mean, I feel like passionate about figuring it out. So kudos to you guys for really doing this solid work. So,
Well, you know, what you just said, it kind of made me think of like how pharma and the open market can collaborate and work together.
yes.
And so, of course, you know, without pharma, we wouldn't have the research and clinical data that brought the cannabis industry back to life after all those years of prohibition. Pharma essentially debunked generations of cannabis propaganda perpetuated by legislators, but we need more research to better understand the different components of cannabis, the endocannabinoid system, and all of the biomolecular mechanisms that are involved. But the public needs to realize that research is not cheap, and the pharmaceutical medications that result from research and development must be protected in order to encourage more research. And pharmaceutical and biotech companies will only do research if there are financial incentives for profit and potential for at least a healthy return on investment. And so while the process of isolation and purification itself is not seen as enough modification to make a case for patentability of naturally occurring molecules like phytocannabinoids on the market, it's important to recognize that providing patent protections for an approved pharmaceutical drug against the entrance of generic pharmaceuticals that have duplicate formulations from competing for the same indications is totally reasonable and has nothing to do with the open market. So to answer, you know, the question of whether big pharma and the open market cannabis industry, if they can collaborate, big pharma and responsible players from the open market industry can collaborate and work together when it comes to educating the public and the healthcare industry. Doctors need to know what options are available to them and the unfortunate risky realities of the open market so that they can best advise their patients. And consumers need to know that they need to consult with their doctors to identify their personal dosage of CBD, what to ask for, and what to avoid when navigating the open market in order to avoid purchasing toxic or fraudulent products. So while the open market may be competing with the prescribing of, you know, the only CBD pharmaceutical drug on the market, Epidiolex, off-label, there is no competition when Epidiolex with the primary target market, which is Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, if the healthcare professionals are educated properly.
Right, and that's right where I am, is I think that now it's approved for, or it will be for TSC, and again, there's a population of people on multiple meds and being treated by multiple specialists and adding in CBD, whether, you know, with Epidiolex, and not really being educated on the endocannabinoid system at all. And how do we have this conversation in a productive way, which you both have really beautifully laid out here is.
Well, you know, CBD is dose dependent on a patient's weight class and condition severity.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to Epidiolex is a 10,000 milligram pharmaceutical oral formulation in a 100 milliliter bottle of dehydrated alcohol, sesame oil, strawberry flavor, and sucralose. And it's indicated for Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. And now, you know, they're looking at several other indications, honestly, you know, and these conditions are rare diseases, as you know. And, you know, the beauty of the rare disease community is that caregivers and patients who are cognitively capable, like myself and yourself, do you have?
I don't, but I don't. My ex had it, and so we have a family history. So I have several children that have tuberculosis.
Okay. So, you know, there's several patients who are cognitively capable. And,
yes, of course. TSC is a huge range. I mean, there's people that are lawyers, doctors, and then, you know, very challenged. So yeah, I get that.
And we ask questions, we're skeptical, and most importantly, we educate ourselves. And so one of the hot topics that has been circulating the rare disease space currently regarding Epidiolex, their choice to include sucralose as an inactive ingredient. Because of this, we're seeing some parents and patients with rare epileptic conditions choose to turn to the open market as opposed to taking Epidiolex either on label or off label because of the sucralose, which is an artificial sweetener found in the formulation. And so the concern was that because way before Epidiolex this concern existed before Epidiolex got to the market because of this one 12-week animal study that had been found that sucralose significantly decreased beneficial gut bacteria while the more harmful bacteria seemed to be less affected. And apparently the gut bacteria had still not returned to normal 12 weeks after the experiment had concluded. Now, it's important to note that this was an animal study and human studies still need to be done, but these negative effects occurred at a sucralose dosage as low as 1.1 milligrams per kilogram. And the FDA's acceptable daily intake for sucralose is 5 milligrams per kilogram. So several individuals with GI issues do their best to typically stay away from this artificial sweetener.
Right.
However, the conversation got an uptick after a report was published in April of 2019 that showed that there is a direct relationship between gut bacteria and autism spectrum disorders. And these researchers were typically attempting to find a treatment for the core symptoms of autism, such as, social communication disorders and repetitive behaviors. So they ultimately concluded the presence of a gut-brain axis, and by increasing gut microbial diversity, including the beneficial microbes, you can effectively improve behavior and GI symptoms long-term, and also improve the actual autism spectrum issues of social communication issues and repetitive behaviors. So now, granted, further studies obviously are warranted, and several parents are now attempting to improve their child's gut microbial diversity, and so are, disease patients like myself who have a seizure disorder but aren't severely cognitively affected. So honestly, I know a lot of people from the makers of Epidiolex are a bit concerned about the open market. We don't think that they have to be concerned when it comes to working the open market on educating, because insurance will not pay for Epidiolex if your condition isn't an approved indication. So patients, even though there's this sucralose concern, if they don't have GI issues and they're not dealing with severe autism disorder, then most likely they'll choose to utilize Epidiolex for financial purposes.
Right.
But for those that do have this concern, we want to make sure that they have access to products that are free of harmful toxins and are actually labeled accurately. And so that's why Pharma and the open market can come together and work together to make sure that healthcare professionals are educated on options and that the patients and the consumers are educated on what their options are.
I love it. It's perfect. I mean, we just need to franchise it and put it all over the place because it's exactly what's needed, in my opinion. I mean, we need to test what's out there now that can be used because, I personally want to try it with my own children, but have really resisted just because I want to make sure that I have a consistent supply and it's expensive. And, if we did Epidiolex, that would be a whole nother consideration. It's complicated, to put it in a nutshell. So
it is. Yeah. It is. And there's so many factors. You have to have this conversation. You have to have this conversation with your healthcare team because there's so many things to consider, and you want to make sure your other medications are not going to be contraindicated.
And that's very common.
Your liver's ability to metabolize it.
Yep. I've read some information, because I know that the way Epidiolex is prescribed, it's at and it's isolate, it has to be at such a high dose that there are some liver, they have seen some liver toxicity issues, but with people on other medications, it seems like. Don't quote me.
Yeah, some do have predispositions to liver issues, and it gets triggered by overworking the liver. And so they really did not know until, he assumed something that, that's the one thing we're learning with the nutrigenomics, where it's not just pharmaceutical medications that can trigger underlying dormant predisposed genetic conditions. It's also could just be our food, could be environmental factors. There's so many potential triggers. And so people like us from the rare disease community, we're always trying to figure, okay, what was my trigger? What's making it worse? How to make it better? And so we always ask questions. We're always asking questions.
Yeah. I want to make sure that you guys talk about, like, if a doctor or physician wants to, what kind of healthcare professionals are you seeing with interest, or how's the climate been? And what can a doctor's office do if they want to prescribe?
So For those practitioners in states with medical marijuana programs, of course, they can manage medical marijuana patients. They can prescribe Epidiolex to patients with the Tourette syndrome or syndrome or the Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, right? Or they can choose to responsibly distribute CBD by signing up as a wholesaler at Blaze Therapeutics and selling CBD directly to the patients in the office, or they could sign up under our referral program.
They
receive a percentage of the revenue per order that's made.
Yeah, so some doctors aren't going to feel, a lot of doctors, they see CBD as a revenue source, an additional revenue source, and they want to be closely paid attention to patients and make sure that they know what's going on so they can kind of collect data themselves. And so those doctors, they want to sell directly. They want to make sure that the patients are getting clean products, so they go ahead. We ask no one to even just trust us. Like, ask us for the certificates of analysis. And, if they don't ask us for the certificates of analysis, we tell them they should have asked us for the certificates of analysis. And then if they don't know how to read it, because we have encountered some people that have no clue how to read a certificate of analysis and make sure that the product in hand actually corresponds to the lab results, we go ahead and help them figure out how to do that so that they can then teach their patients how to do that.
Wow.
But some doctors, they're not interested in handling actual products because they don't fully understand the legal market. And so we also provide them with the ability to sign up for the provider referral program, where they'll still receive a percentage of revenue per patient that orders a product. But that way they don't have to worry about, storage, because CBD is fragile. And if it's heated up after a certain point, it degrades. If it's exposed to UV light, it's going to degrade.
Right.
And so a lot of doctors don't want to take on that responsibility.
But for those doctors that do want to take on that responsibility, we do offer the doctor's cannabis medicine program. We give that to them to be sure whenever they sign up that they have the education to go into it. We don't just let them sign up and be like, all right, well, here's our responsible distributed product.
Right.
Good luck. Right.
You make them, they kind of have to participate in that piece of it, or you make that a big part of what you're selling or what you're providing.
Yeah, they need to understand how to appropriate those patients, and the fact that you can't generalize a patient's dose. We've been seeing that a lot when it comes to CBD products.
Yeah, I bet.
Where they're saying, just take a whole tincture twice a day. Like, you can't tell anyone that. Like, that's so inaccurate. It's dependent on their weight class. It's dangerous to assume otherwise.
Yeah, so it needs a degree of individualization that some doctors are not familiar with, because most medications, probably should be far more individualized than they are, but they just write a prescription and it's all calculated for them. They don't have to really think outside the box. So that's a huge one, I think.
They need to keep track of the liver enzymes when a patient is on CBD. And so that's something that's super important. You never know who has a predisposition to liver failure.
Yeah, that's definitely really important. This is great. I want to make sure I share this in all of the communities that I'm in when we produce it, because if doctors, knew there's people out there doing this kind of programming and stuff, I think they'd probably take advantage of it.
Well, so we have been working with hospital networks within New Jersey and New York at the current moment, and actually educating on cannabis medicine and the endocannabinoids, the mechanisms behind the endocannabinoid system. Because that's, at the end of the day, doctors need to have a good grasp of the endocannabinoid system so that they can, theoretically, cannabis and its derivatives have a high therapeutic potential for several health conditions. It's proven by, numerous clinical studies over the past 2 decades. But we need people to realize that this therapeutic potential does not automatically translate to a product just because it claims to have CBD or some other phytocannabinoid or set of phytocannabinoids in it. Every phytocannabinoid seems to have a different effect on the body. And so it's important to understand what that is. And so when a patient comes in with an underlying condition and they know which systems are affected, they can best target it. And they can come up with better treatment options, more personalized treatment options.
yeah, so getting doctors to kind of light bulb on and realizing that there are people out there being able to provide this kind of quality assurance and
to protect their
certification.
liability, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's
right.
super
It's a
important.
liability issue, basically.
It's a severe liability
Severe,
issue.
I
Like
should
even,
say.
you know, there's certain rules. There's just legal rules that a lot of CBD companies are missing. We have an actual responsible distribution compliance manual that manufacturers or brand owners can download for free online, and they can find out, you know, look, that you can't print supplements on your packaging. Right now, CBD does not qualify as a supplement. It's super important that if that's now, if supplement is written on the product formulation doesn't matter how therapeutic it may be or how clean it may be, it's now an illegal product because of how it's been labeled. And, you know, we do our best, and, you know, it has to have the FDA statement on there that it hasn't been evaluated by the FDA, and it's not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any condition. There are certain requirements.
Right. It has to fly under that supplement. There's a name for the Supplement Act or whatever it is. It has to, there's very specific rules about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and some of the things that even the average consumer could look at and see common sense type deals, manufacturers are just refusing because they don't have anyone inspecting their product before it hits the market.
Yeah, like a lot of them, they don't have batch or lot numbers on them. And if a product does not have a batch or lot number on it, that means they're not tracking it. There's no way to even recall it if they are practicing a recalling type of system. And so anytime you go shopping, and if for whatever reason, you don't want to do responsible distribution, at least don't purchase a product that doesn't have a lot or batch number on it. That should go for every product any product that you purchase ever as a consumer. If there's no batch or lot number on it, then you shouldn't purchase it.
Okay.
It's not being tracked.
Okay.
And that also goes for your pet products. Even
pet products.
Pet food, pet treats, and CBD. I mean, all of that falls under the same spectrum of, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah, there's basic manufacturing practices, there's guidances, but unfortunately, they're not enforceable. And so, you know, that's why we keep seeing lettuce being recalled. You know, it's just right now our system is broken, and that's why, you know, we're starting with cannabis, but we plan on implementing this model across the board so that we can help protect public health in general and help improve all of our health.
So I'll just throw a little plug in there for New Love Ventures. And basically what we're doing with New Love Ventures, it's a new love culture. It's a social movement to help people bring awareness to themselves and being human, you know, looking out for their fellow person, regardless of what they're doing in their life and how they're
or what they believe in. If you look on Instagram at New Love Culture, New Love Ventures is leading that social initiative to try and get all of us to just realize we all got at least one thing in common. We're human, and this is the planet Earth is our home. Yeah, and we should care about each other's health.
Yeah, walk a mile in someone else's shoes and cut each other a break.
Yeah, you know, especially coming from the rare disease community, like I have what would be termed an invisible condition.
Yes.
And
talk about that.
Yeah, when you first look at me, you wouldn't even expect that, you know, I have a myriad of conditions and I walk with knee braces and all that stuff. And I don't want to look sick when I go out, you know.
I get it.
So, but I do have a handicap hang tag. So does, you know, Vincent, he's a veteran. And when we park in handicap spots during days we can't walk too far, we're in pain, that we get attacked. We get, you know, those letters on our car that, you know, you should be ashamed of yourself. You know, and that's the thing. Like, we're like, okay, we really need to keep promoting the new love culture and human culture because people still are struggling with judging people by their appearances. And so that's one of the philanthropic efforts that we've been really trying to do, and supporting any other company that is engaged with any sort of humanity effort that's going to help bring us all together.
Wow. You guys have hit so many really important pieces of what's going on in society, you know, on a smaller level with the CBD or whatever. But and then bringing in the New Love Ventures. That's beautiful. Yeah. I do have one more question. So if I have listeners all over the country, sometimes over the globe, if someone, wants to explore CBD for themselves or their loved one, what's the best way that I ask people this, approach your doctor or approach your healthcare professional? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So yes, the first thing they should do is talk with their healthcare professional. But if they have a healthcare professional that says, look, I haven't had a chance to educate myself on the endocannabinoid system or CBD, ask them, say, hey, can you please reach out to blazetherapeutics.com and the people there, or just call that company, and then we will help educate them in an expedited, and we understand their busy schedules. We will provide them with the materials in order for them to learn what they need to do in order to help their patients. Right now, the stigma within the healthcare community has dwindled. There's enough clinical evidence out there for cannabis. So now doctors are actually learning. Columbia University has taken on the effort of teaching their healthcare professionals. Central State is doing the same.
Great. So they're doing education right in the hospital for
They're
the
doing
doctors.
Continuing education for all the doctors that are already graduated, and the universities are now incorporating the endocannabinoid system and cannabis medicine into the curriculums now for pharmacy and medical schools. So now there's enough clinical evidence out there, and especially with all the law changes, we're at that point now where the stigma is essentially, under the rug.
Yeah.
It's
not anywhere near as bad.
Yeah. It's not as uncomfortable to say for most people that they've engaged in cannabis medicine or that they've turned to cannabis medicine. And so that's one thing where we're happy finally is happening, but we want people to understand that and not have that fear, understand that your doctor is not going to judge you. And if they do, then you might need a new doctor.
Might need a new doctor. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. It's kind of like a litmus test.
Yes,
for doctors. Exactly. Yeah. Vincent, before we wrap up, as far as the veteran community, how's the response been, or what's been going on in your perspective? And
yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, it's such a mixed bag, because when you're serving, you're taught one thing by that one thing,
right,
and you die by that one thing.
Right.
Going to the VA hospitals, we went to VA hospitals last year, or actually 2018, and we actually got ran off of the VA parking lot because they didn't want us having a conversation. I guess someone overheard our conversation because there was a vet that had cancer, and he's like, I'm in so much pain, and he's like, I'll try anything at this point. You could see the horror on his face. And so we were like, we were telling him about the CBD and trying to educate him on what options he might want to consider in the cannabis space. And then I guess someone overheard us, and they started saying, you can't stand here. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so, but they actually changed recently and started CBD trial. Right. And so for veterans, but right now they're testing PTSD, they're not testing pain.
Okay.
But that's the step that while they're not using CBD derived from hemp, they're using synthetic CBD for the study. It still is a step forward in the mindset.
Okay. Yes.
And so
we got to applaud that.
We were happy to hear that they're seeing the clinical data as well, and they're at least exploring its impact on PTSD.
That's great.
And the thing is, they have to understand how all of this even happened legally. But right now, if you just say CBD is legal, technically that's not the truest term. CBD derived from marijuana is not legal. However, CBD derived from hemp is legal.
Yes.
That's the one thing that a lot of people get mixed up. They don't fully comprehend how because it's the same molecule, how one CBD product can be legal and another CBD product can't. And it all comes down to the Farm Bill Act of 2018. It legalized hemp and all of its derivatives. So as long, of course, there are rules, the product can have more than 0.3% THC, and it has to be grown in a legal way. And so, your average person can't just grow. You have to be careful. And that's why it's a part of our responsible distribution model. Not just anyone can grow hemp. You have to be registered with the state and with the federal government. And so as long as you are registered and you're growing hemp legally, then you can utilize those products to make medicinal products or hempcrete or any other, hemp product that's coming to market. And
there's
so
a
that's
lot.
Yeah.
Wow, a lot of details to the legal aspect of it.
Yeah, it's just understanding it. And the thing is, veterans don't want to break the law. That's the one thing. And so if they're not sure if they're going to break the law, then they won't. And so they have to understand that even THC, as long as it's derived from hemp, is legal. It has been protected by that law. As long as it doesn't exceed 0.3% THC, if it's derived from hemp, and everyone has a right to request those documents as proof that the product is from the legal market. And if it's from the legal market, then they're protected. And we see even more evidence of that in the news, where when hemp is being confiscated mistaken for actual marijuana because they smell the same and look the same. Now a lot of police officers are being sued, and they can. The laws are protecting those people that had their property technically stolen. So as long as you keep up with everything, and we have an education tab with free publications that can actually help people go through the laws as they are currently written and better understand them. And if they want to have a conversation about it and better understand or digest the material, then we have no problem coordinating a call.
Yeah, and
that's wonderful.
The 7th edition education manual that's on the site, like I said, it's free download, and it pretty much can get anyone to be responsible in distributing and consuming.
Yeah, it breaks down the basic concepts and helps people understand the legal definition between marijuana and hemp now, because marijuana and hemp, they're both cannabis at the end of the day.
It's still confusing.
We say cannabis derived so that people don't forget that hemp's definition was legally changed. Hemp used to be the male version of cannabis, of marijuana. Marijuana, was the femaling plant, and hemp was technically referred to as the male plant. And now it's been redefined as cannabis sativa, any cannabis that is below 0.3% THC. And so because of that change, now we have a legal plant that, that has nothing to, the definition has nothing to do with its chemistry. And we just have to, that's just legal in for the moment.
Right.
But people need to understand what that is. And and that way we can all work together and make appropriate decisions. And we don't necessarily want the open market to hurt the pharmaceutical market, because the pharmaceutical market is giving us all this amazing data and all this research. And so we want to respect that, and we want to work with them, and all the information that we get from the open market, the pharmaceutical market can then utilize, all the anecdotal data that we receive from all these
citizen science.
Yeah, they can then, enough people with this condition has seemed to be responding well to this specific chemovar. I don't call them strains, because strains refers to, bacteria and viruses. But
with your background, I can see that might be
Yeah, I was like, why are people calling plants strains?
Probably physically hurts.
Yeah, but we can all work together, and the data that's coming from the open market is very valuable for the pharmaceutical market. And
well, that's good, because, I think there's always this us, them, this black and white narrative that gets kind of escalated in different circles. Pharma's all bad, or, we've got to have pharma. We've got to go that way. So this has just been a fabulous conversation. I feel like I've learned a ton, and I'm really thrilled to know about you guys.
Yeah, well, and this is great. And you already have my email address, but for anyone that has any questions whatsoever, you don't have to be buying anything. We're not trying to sell you anything. But if you want to get educated, you can reach out at info@blazetherapeutics.com.
Okay.
But they can call 833-422-5293. They don't, do internet and stuff of that sort. So
right. I think that's great that you're so accessible, and you're willing to take the time with whoever it is.
Yeah. And when we go on the road, Yeah, we're only focused on education. We don't focus on the brand and any of that. It's the more people, once they learn what's actually going on and they ask questions, we're the only ones doing responsible distribution. So it's just going to be it's a natural progression. So
Yes.
we don't even need to really.
You don't need to sell it. You just need to talk about it.
We just need to educate. That's it.
Okay. So you are blazetherapeutics.com.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And I know you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, Twitter. Yeah. Thanks. Loved meeting you, and I will be in touch.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Talk soon.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to our podcast, TSC Talks. Please feel free to navigate to our website, www.tsctalks.com. Please try to support us, make a contribution, say a prayer, leave a review. Tell us you love us, you hate us, but thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more.